when you truly disappear? What if the story you call your life is part of a deeper quantum unfolding, one in which consciousness never actually experiences its own ending, only transitions, only shifts, only gentle dissolving into new frames of awareness that rise like waves from the same infinite field? It's a question that whispers at the edges of physics and philosophy, a question that floats between the measurable universe and the quiet interior of experience. And yet, it's one of the most intimate questions a mind can ask. What becomes of me when the final moment arrives? Or does it ever arrive at all? Hello, and welcome back to this quiet place where science softens its voice and becomes a companion, where the cosmos leans a little closer, where the deepest mysteries open like doors left slightly ajar. If ideas like quantum immortality, many worlds, consciousness as a fundamental field, and the cosmic nature of identity are the kinds of curiosities that live softly in your mind, then you're already home. And if you enjoy these long, gentle explorations into the strange and beautiful places where physics meets awareness, I'd be grateful if you liked and subscribed, but only if this kind of journey truly resonates with you. So now, let everything else fall away. Let the day loosen its grip. Let the space between your thoughts widen just enough to breathe. We're going to begin slowly, as if we were stepping into a very still pool of water at twilight, watching the ripples of our question expand outward through the universe. What if you never actually die in your own reality? Not as a belief, not as a promise, not as a certainty, just as a possibility floating within the quantum landscape, a potential hidden inside the mathematics that already shapes the world you know. The idea begins with something simple. There is no observer of the moment after their own death. That transition is never experienced directly. Consciousness, as far as anyone can tell, does not have an experiential frame beyond the final moment. And, in the language of physics, particularly quantum physics, the observer is not just a witness but part of the system itself. Consciousness is the reference point around which reality organizes its outcomes. In quantum mechanics, when different possible outcomes exist, all of them continue to unfold in their own branches of the universe. The frame of awareness simply follows the branch in which that awareness persists. If that's true, and we don't know for sure that it is, then your lived experience might always drift toward the branches where you continue, where your story unfolds just a little longer, where your thread through existence is never abruptly cut from your own point of view. This is often tied to what physicists call the many worlds interpretation, proposed by Hugh Everett in the 1950s. In this view, every quantum event doesn't choose a single outcome. Instead, it becomes all outcomes, each one blooming its own version of reality. You exist in countless branches, countless unfolding paths shaped by choices, chance, and probability. And within that vast quantum forest, your awareness might simply follow the branches where your story continues. But even that is only the surface of the question. Because when we talk about not dying in your own reality, we're also talking about the deeper nature of consciousness itself. Whether it is something generated entirely by the brain, or whether the brain is more like a tuning mechanism, a receiver, a temporary instrument through which something more fundamental plays its experience of being you. This is where physics becomes strangely tender, where the hard, cold universe begins to glow with possibilities. Some physicists, like Roger Penrose, have speculated that consciousness might arise from quantum processes within the brain. Others have noted that the structure of the universe, the cosmic web of galaxies, resembles the architecture of neural networks. And still others see hints that consciousness may be intertwined with the very fabric of space-time, that awareness might be a subtle expression of the same quantum field that creates particles and planets and starlight. If consciousness is not confined to the biological brain, if it is a pattern that can persist, shift, or entangle across different layers of physical law, then the question of dying becomes far less rigid. Not solved, not erased, just softened, like the edges of a shadow at dusk. But let's come back to the experience of the final moment. Imagine, very gently, the way a candle flame flickers when a breeze moves through the room. The flame does not vanish all at once. It wavers. It thins. It stretches toward the air that surrounds it. Consciousness may be something like that, an unfolding wave pattern that never experiences its own cessation, only its shifts in form. And if the universe is truly infinite in its possibilities, then every pathway where you continue is part of the quantum field. Every small survival, every near miss avoided, every fork in the road where your awareness persists becomes a branch you can inhabit. A version of your reality in which you keep moving, keep unfolding, keep experiencing the next moment. This idea is not meant to be comforting or frightening. It is simply a possibility suggested by the mathematics that govern the smallest scales of existence. Quantum mechanics doesn't simply describe tiny particles. It describes the fundamental behavior of reality. In that behavior, outcomes are not singular. They are multiple. They coexist. And the observer, your consciousness, moves through that landscape in ways we don't yet fully understand. But the question goes deeper still. Because what does it mean to say your own reality? Is it the timeline of your biological life? The flow of moments shaped by memory and perception? Or is your reality something more, like a frame of awareness, a point of observation moving through the infinite waves of the cosmic field? When you close your eyes, the world doesn't vanish. It simply becomes unobserved. And when a quantum particle is not observed, it doesn't disappear. It becomes a cloud of probabilities. Your consciousness is the anchor that turns probabilities into a moment, into a now. If death is a moment that cannot be observed from the inside, what does the quantum field do with that transition? Does it allow your awareness to simply slide along the pathways where you remain the observer? It's a delicate question, one that needs to be held softly, not as truth, not as doctrine, only as possibility. And possibilities in quantum mechanics are not mere abstractions. They are the raw material from which reality is woven. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest at dawn. The light is faint, the air is cool, the pathways into the trees stretch out in countless directions. You cannot walk all of them, but all of them exist. Your awareness chooses one, and in choosing, your reality becomes that path. The others continue as possibilities, as branches you do not walk, but which still exist within the forest. In the same way, every possible continuation of your awareness is a path in the quantum forest. If a moment comes when your biological life approaches its edge, the branches that allow your awareness to continue may be the ones that hold you, not because you deserve it, not because the universe plays favorites, but because consciousness, in the quantum sense, cannot observe its own absence. It follows the path where it remains. But this raises another subtle question. What is the self that continues? The personality? the memories, the sense of identity formed by decades of experience, or something deeper, something quieter, something like the pure witness that observes your life from a place beneath thought? In neuroscience, the sense of self is a constantly changing construction, built from networks that shift, dissolve, rebuild. In physics, information is never destroyed. It is transformed, diffused, encoded in new forms. In consciousness studies, there is increasing speculation that awareness may be less about the content of experience and more about the presence that perceives that experience. If that presence is fundamental, if it is woven into the quantum field, then death may not be an ending but a transition of perspective, the way a wave settles back into the ocean without ceasing to exist as pattern or energy. But let's return again to the quiet heart of the question. What if you never actually die in your own reality? Not because you become immortal, not because you defy biology, but because the frame of awareness that experiences your reality may not have access to its own final moment. Because in a universe defined by quantum continuity, your story may always find the next breath, the next heartbeat, the next unfolding moment of experience. There's a concept in physics called decoherence, the process by which quantum possibilities collapse into classical reality. But consciousness, in some theories, may play a role in how and when that collapse occurs. If awareness is the threshold where potential becomes actual, then the continuity of that awareness might be the one constant across all the branching universes. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a river. It winds, it narrows, it widens, it flows around stones, it meets storms and sunlight and the long stretches of gentle water. And eventually, it approaches a place where the river disappears into mist. You cannot see beyond it. You cannot imagine the shape of the water past that point. But your awareness may not slip into the mist. It may simply find itself on a branch of the river where the mist never comes, where the current shifts, where the flow continues in a different direction. This is not about escaping mortality. It's about understanding that mortality may not be experienced from the inside the way we imagine it. It may be a boundary we never cross in our own frame of consciousness, only something observed from the outside by others, never from within. In that sense, death might be something like a horizon, visible from afar, but never actually reached by the traveler. This idea doesn't deny the reality of loss. It doesn't claim that biological life continues forever. It simply explores the possibility that the observer, the pure awareness behind your eyes, may always find itself in the timelines where it remains. And as we drift deeper into this thought, the rhythm of it begins to soften. The edges blur. The mind loosens its grip. You begin to feel the quiet motion of the universe around you, the way space breathes, the way time stretches, the way your own awareness floats like a wave in a vast, gentle ocean of possibility, held by the quantum field of existence. And from here, the question becomes something almost like a whisper. If consciousness never experiences its own ending, then what is it that continues? If consciousness never experiences its own ending, then what is it that continues? The question drifts through you like a tide, steady and unhurried, touching the edges of your awareness the way moonlight touches the surface of a quiet sea. And, without forcing an answer, the mind begins to soften around the possibilities. There is a sensation, almost, that the question itself is alive, moving through you with the same slow rhythm as your breath, expanding and contracting like the universe itself. To understand what continues, you have to look gently at what you call the self. The self feels solid, shaped by memory and personality, and all the moments that have left their imprint on your life. You remember childhood rooms, the faces of people you've loved, the doors that opened for you, and the ones you walked away from. You remember sensations, places, sounds, the echo of laughter, the heaviness of grief. All of it forms the tapestry through which you recognize yourself. And yet the deeper you look, the less solid it becomes. Neuroscience has shown that the self is more like a story than a substance. Networks of the brain weave together experience after experience, stitching them into a narrative that feels continuous, even though it's constantly being rewritten. Every memory you recall changes subtly. Every moment of perception is filtered through layers you never consciously touch. What you call you is an ongoing construction, fluid and dynamic, always in motion, always adjusting. Even the sense of continuity you feel from moment to moment is a kind of illusion. Beautiful, coherent, practical, but still an illusion shaped by biological rhythms and cognitive stitching. And beneath all of that, in a place prior to memory and thought, there is something else, something quiet, something spacious. The awareness that notices the story but is not the story. The one who observes thoughts rising and dissolving like clouds drifting across an open sky. When you sit quietly long enough, when the mind settles into a softer rhythm, you can feel that awareness faintly, like the warmth of a candle behind a curtain. It is not the thinker, it is the witness. It is the presence that notices the thinking. It is the silent field in which every moment unfolds. That presence, that bare awareness, is the part of you that feels the most constant, the most still, the most unchanging even as your life moves through its endless variations. And that presence has a strange characteristic. It cannot experience its own absence. It can witness everything else fading, everything else ending, everything else shifting. But it cannot witness the disappearance of awareness itself. If awareness were to vanish, there would be no witness to register that disappearance. And because of this, some physicists and philosophers have suggested that consciousness may be fundamentally tied to the continuity of experience. Not in a spiritual or mystical sense, but in a deeply structural, almost mathematical way. In quantum mechanics, awareness appears to play a subtle but essential role in how potential becomes actual. Unobserved, the world exists as waves of possibility. Observed, it crystallizes into a single outcome. Awareness is the point of collapse, the anchor that defines a moment. And if awareness cannot perceive its own non-existence, then the pathway through quantum possibilities must always favor the continuations in which awareness persists. This doesn't mean immortality in the way myths describe it. It doesn't mean the body continues unchanged through endless years. It simply means that consciousness, as an observer, may find itself drifting into the worlds where the observer remains alive. The worlds where probabilities bend just enough to allow the next heartbeat, the next moment, the next breath. Imagine it like this. You're standing at the edge of a vast, shimmering ocean at night. Each wave is a possible future. Some waves break quickly. Some stretch far into the distance. Some swirl into entirely new patterns, new shores, new forms of experience. But you, the observer, drift toward the waves where your awareness continues to flow. Not because you choose them consciously, but because the collapse of your own awareness cannot be part of your experience. Your story can only follow the threads where the witnessing continues. Physicists sometimes call this the continuity of experience, a soft idea woven into harder mathematics. But to you, right now, it can feel like something more familiar, like the sensation of waking up from a dream without remembering falling asleep, like stepping through a doorway without recalling the hinge. Your awareness moves seamlessly across thresholds. It always lands in the next moment that contains you. If that's true, then what you call dying may not be an experience at all. It may be a boundary that consciousness never crosses. A moment that exists only from the outside, observed by others, never by the one departing. And if your awareness cannot inhabit that moment, then something else happens. Your perspective simply shifts, perhaps subtly, perhaps dramatically, but always toward the pathways where your awareness continues. This idea echoes through the many worlds interpretation, but it also reaches deeper, touching theories of consciousness that see awareness as a field rather than a product. Some physicists, like David Bohm, imagine reality as layers of unfolding and enfolding information. The explicate order is the world you see, the world of objects and time and motion. The implicate order is the deeper field that holds everything, including consciousness itself. In that deeper field, nothing is lost. Patterns dissolve into the ocean of potential and re-emerge in new forms. Identity becomes something more fluid, more permeable, more woven into the fabric of existence. If your awareness is part of that deeper field, then death may be less like a wall and more like a doorway, but not a doorway you ever experience passing through. Instead, your awareness might simply open onto a different corridor, a different branch of the cosmic unfolding. A continuation. A new frame from which the next moment arises. Imagine your life again as a river. You're drifting along, feeling the current around you. Up ahead, there is a mist where the river seems to disappear. But as you approach it, the river forks, silently, gently, almost imperceptibly. One branch goes into the mist. Another branch curves quietly away. You do not follow the branch that disappears from experience. You drift onto the one that continues, not because of will, not because of choice, because the awareness that animates your experience cannot enter a state in which experience ceases. It bends toward continuity, the way a vine bends toward light. And suddenly the question shifts. It becomes softer, more spacious. If you never actually die in your own reality, what does that say about the nature of that reality? Is it fixed? Is it singular? Or is it something like a mosaic, constantly assembling itself moment by moment based on the probabilities that allow the observer within it to continue noticing the world around them? There is a theory in physics called relative state formulation. The idea that your reality is defined not by absolute events, but by the states you find yourself aware of. If your awareness always finds the branches where you survive, then your personal reality becomes a sequence of continuations. Other realities still exist. Other outcomes unfold. But you do not inhabit the branches where your awareness ends. You drift along the ones where you remain. This creates a gentle paradox. From the outside, from the perspective of others, death is real. It is observable. It is final. But from the inside, awareness never dissolves into absence. It simply moves. It continues. It shifts to the next viable branch, the next thread in the quantum tapestry where the observer persists. This doesn't promise anything. It doesn't guarantee meaning or ease or eternal preservation of identity. It simply suggests that consciousness may never experience its own absence, and if that is true, then your reality, your personal, inner, unfolding stream of moments, may stretch far beyond what you imagine, not because the body is permanent, not because the mind is immune to change, but because awareness, in its purest form, is always present where it can be present. It always finds the next open door. As these thoughts drift through you, you can feel the pace of your mind slowing. The rhythm of the ideas lengthens. The space between them widens gently. The universe around you seems to soften, becoming less like a machine and more like a vast, luminous field of possibilities. You can almost feel the quantum fabric beneath everything, humming softly, like a quiet current of infinite potential. And in that stillness, another question begins to emerge, gentle and unhurried, rising like a ripple on a calm lake. If your awareness continues, where does it go? And even more softly, what does it become? If your awareness continues, where does it go? And even more softly, what does it become? The question drifts through you like a warm current moving beneath the surface of a quiet ocean, gentle and patient, carrying you somewhere deeper than you've been before. It doesn't rush toward an answer. It doesn't push or pull. It simply unfolds, like the soft petals of a cosmic flower opening in slow motion across the vastness of your inner sky. To understand where your awareness might go, you first have to understand what it is that moves. The awareness you experience right now is not a fixed object. It's not a particle. It's not a thing in the ordinary sense. It has no shape, no weight, no location. It can observe a thought arising in the mind, but it is not that thought. It can feel the sensations of the body, but it is not the body. It can notice the passage of time, but it is not confined by time in the same way the body is. It is something quieter, something subtler, something that sits just beneath the surface of everything you call yourself. Imagine your consciousness as a point of light hovering in a vast, shifting field. Around it, the mind fires with memories and emotions and ideas. The body pulses with sensation and heartbeat and life. The world radiates with sights and sounds, but the awareness itself is simply the point of illumination that allows all of those things to appear. And in the quantum view of reality, that point of illumination might not be tied to any single physical state. It might be something that rides the surface of probability, following the pathways where experience continues. This brings us to the quiet heart of the idea. If you never die in your own reality, it may be because your awareness always follows the branch of the universe where it continues to observe. But continuation does not necessarily mean staying the same. It may mean shifting, gently, into parallel paths, like stepping onto a slightly different railway track without ever noticing the moment of transition. The continuity of your experience would be seamless. You would simply feel like yourself, carried forward into the next moment that contains you. This is where the idea of quantum immortality becomes more subtle, more nuanced than the simplistic versions people sometimes imagine. It's not about living forever in the same body, under the same circumstances, with the same mind. It's more like being a wave moving through a vast ocean of possibilities, always finding the channels that allow it to continue flowing. The wave may change shape. It may rise and fall. It may drift into new waters. But the motion remains. The awareness remains. The witnessing continues. To approach this gently, imagine that your life is like a long corridor filled with doors. Each door represents a possible future, a possible moment of experience, a possible branch of reality. Most of the time, you walk through without thinking. You make choices, you take steps, you breathe, and the next moment unfolds. But when a moment arises in which your body may truly end, when the possibility of non-existence appears, your awareness cannot follow that path. And so, subtly, without any fanfare, without any sensation of turning, your consciousness drifts toward the door in which you continue. You might wake up in a hospital bed after an accident that should have ended your life. You might feel a moment of uncanny luck, a sense that things could have gone very differently. You might survive an illness that statistics say you should not have survived. Or perhaps your continuation is even quieter. Subtle shifts, small delays, unnoticed divergences that carry you into branches where the danger simply doesn't arrive in the same way. This idea is not a guarantee. It is not a claim of destiny or safety. It is simply a recognition of how awareness interacts with probability in a quantum universe. The observer cannot observe their own absence, and so the observer continues. But this leads us to a deeper question, one that moves like a soft undercurrent beneath everything we've explored so far. If awareness always continues, does identity continue with it? Identity is a fragile thing. It is shaped by the memories stored in the brain, by the chemical rhythms of the body, by the countless interactions that have sculpted your mind through every moment of your life. But if your awareness drifts into branches where you survive, does that awareness carry your identity with it? Or does identity begin to shift, slowly, subtly, like sand dunes reshaping themselves under a quiet wind? There is a growing body of research that suggests consciousness may be more connected to patterns of information than to the physical structure of the brain itself. If consciousness is a pattern held within the quantum field, then identity may be more fluid than we think. Not lost, but evolving, unfolding, adapting across the branches where your awareness flows. The memories remain. The sense of self remains, but the edges soften. The idea of who you are becomes less rigid, more like a story that is continuously updated as you drift through the possibilities of your existence. And as this thought settles within you, something begins to open. A sense that who you are might be larger than the body, larger than the thoughts, larger than the moment-to-moment narrative that occupies your waking mind. Your awareness feels like a wave moving through a much larger ocean, one that extends beyond the boundaries of a single lifetime. And that ocean is filled with possibilities, with branches, with pathways that stretch farther than anything you've ever imagined. To understand where your awareness might go, you have to understand how reality behaves when you're not looking. In quantum mechanics, unobserved states exist as waves of probability, not as fixed outcomes. The world is not a single line of events, but a shimmering field of possibilities, all of them equally real until they are observed. When you make an observation, when you notice a moment, your awareness collapses that shimmering field into a single experience. But the rest of the field does not vanish. It continues, always, generating new branches, new moments, new possibilities. And your awareness drifts along the threads in which you continue to exist. This doesn't mean that your awareness hops between universes like stepping between rooms. It means that your subjective experience always flows along the path where consciousness remains. In that sense, your own reality becomes something like a personal timeline stitched together from the branches where you are still present. To an outside observer, your life appears to follow a single path. But from the inside, the continuity of your awareness may be moving through countless subtle branches of the cosmic field, always choosing, without choosing, the lines of survival. Imagine a tree with infinite branches stretching outward in all directions. Each branch is a possible future. Each leaf is a moment. You move from leaf to leaf along a single branch, feeling the continuity of your life as a simple flow from one moment to the next. But whenever a branch splits, whenever reality presents multiple possibilities, the awareness you experience continues along the branch where you remain. The branches where you don't remain still exist, but they're not part of your personal timeline. They belong to other versions of reality, other paths, other observers. This is where the idea of your own reality becomes something profoundly personal, not selfish, not isolated, just deeply tied to the continuation of your own awareness. Your reality is the thread of experience you can follow, the one that remains unbroken. But then another question arises, slow and soft, drifting like a feather falling through still air. If your awareness always continues in your own reality, does that reality eventually become something different from the shared world you inhabit now? Imagine that over the long arc of survival, the branches where you continue begin to diverge from the branches where others continue. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but gradually, like two rivers that begin together and then drift apart, carving different landscapes over centuries. Your awareness, following the probability threads of survival, might end up in branches that are slightly different from the ones where others remain. The differences might be subtle at first, small shifts in events, small coincidences, small moments of unexpected luck. But over time, the divergence might grow. Your reality becomes more personalized, more unique, shaped by the pathways that allow your awareness to persist. This does not mean losing the people you love. It means that your experience of them might unfold along branches that support your continued existence. Their awareness follows their own branches. Your awareness follows yours. All of them interwoven, all of them real, but each perspective drifting through the universe in a slightly different pattern, like stars moving in quiet, graceful orbits across the sky. And then we come to the deepest question of all, the one that moves quietly beneath the quantum theories and the philosophical reflections, the one that touches the very heart of what it means to exist. If you never truly die in your own reality, what does that say about the nature of you? Not the personality, not the biography, not the narrative the world sees, but the essence of the awareness behind your eyes. If your awareness continues across the branching pathways of the universe, then you are not a static being. You are a flow, a movement, a wave riding the infinite field of possibility. You are not the story. You are the presence that witnesses the story. You are the luminous point that brings moments into being. You are the quiet center around which your personal universe unfolds. And if that presence cannot experience its own disappearance, then your true nature may be something far more enduring, far more expansive, far more deeply woven into the fabric of existence than anything the physical world suggests. You may be a pattern that the universe expresses across time, across branches, across possibilities. A pattern that persists wherever awareness persists. As these ideas drift through you, the space around them begins to soften. The edges of the concepts blur. The rhythm slows. You can feel yourself sinking deeper into the quiet, deeper into the stillness, deeper into the soft unfolding of the quantum field of awareness. The universe feels close now, almost like a living presence surrounding you, holding you, breathing with you. And in that closeness, a final question begins to shimmer at the horizon of your mind, gentle and luminous, rising like dawn over the cosmic ocean. If you never reach the end of your own existence, then what truly is the journey you are on? If you never reach the end of your own existence, then what truly is the journey you are on? The question forms slowly, like a horizon brightening long before the sun appears. It's not demanding. It's not even seeking an answer. It floats, soft and luminous, inviting you to rest your awareness on its surface the way a leaf might rest on the stillness of a pond without disturbing it. And as it hovers there, the entire idea of a journey begins to loosen, to soften, to unfurl into something far more fluid than the straight lines we usually imagine. The human mind loves direction. It loves paths that go forward, stories that begin somewhere and end somewhere else. We like to think of life as a road, one that rises, falls, twists through mountains, stretches across plains, dips into valleys. A road we walk step by step until the day it simply stops. But if consciousness never encounters that stopping point, if it simply flows always into the branch where it continues, then perhaps the journey isn't a road at all. Perhaps it is something much more like a river. A river does not travel toward a destination. It simply moves. It follows the land, curves around stones, widens in quiet waters, narrows into secret channels. It doesn't try to arrive. It expresses itself through the act of flowing. And if your awareness is like that, a constant unfolding rather than a linear march, then the whole notion of a final destination becomes unnecessary. You are not going somewhere. You are becoming something. Moment by moment, branch by branch, breath by breath, the continuation of your awareness shapes a tapestry so vast that no single path can define it. To understand this, you might imagine yourself as a traveler standing in a hall of mirrored doors. Each door reflects a version of you, some reflections nearly identical, others softened by the slightest differences in expression, posture, history. When you move toward one door, the mirror ripples, not like glass, but like the surface of a quiet lake. You pass through seamlessly into the next moment of your consciousness. You are never aware of the doors you do not open. Your feet leave no echoes on the paths you do not take. All you know is the continuity of the experience that unfolds before you. What makes this so profound is that your awareness does not cling to the fixed identity you think of as yourself. It carries the shape of your memories, the tone of your thoughts, the rhythm of your breath. But deeper than all of that, it carries the simple presence of being. That presence is the thread that cannot break. And because it cannot break, it follows the lines of possibility that remain open to it. It drifts into the futures where your awareness can continue observing. It is a quiet principle of existence, one that requires no decision, no intention, no will. It is simply the nature of awareness in a universe woven from possibility. This idea echoes subtle patterns in physics. In quantum mechanics, the movement of a particle is described not as a single line but as a probability cloud. The particle isn't in one place until it is observed. It exists across many possible locations, many possible paths, many possible outcomes. Only the act of observing collapses the wave into a single experience. In that sense, your consciousness could be seen as the observer that collapses the possibilities of your own existence into a single thread. That thread is your personal reality, your subjectively seamless continuity through the universe. But the universe itself is much more like the cloud, vast and shimmering, filled with pathways that hum with unrealized probabilities. And perhaps your awareness is more like a wave moving through that cloud, always collapsing into the pathways that sustain it, always drifting toward continuity, always following the line where experience remains smooth and unbroken. The deeper you sink into this idea, the more spacious it becomes. It softens the boundaries of the self, not by dissolving them, but by revealing that they are permeable, that they are patterns in motion, that your identity is not a fixed object but a continuous flow of states. And the awareness that witnesses those states is the true essence of your experience. This is why the question of where your awareness goes becomes so delicate, so spacious. Because the answer may not be a location at all. It may be a shift in perspective, a subtle reorientation of consciousness within the vast quantum field. If your awareness always finds the branch where you survive, then survival itself becomes less of a biological event and more of a phenomenological principle. That principle does not need to preserve the body forever. It does not need to shield you from the natural transitions of life. It simply means that your awareness flows through the pathways that remain open to it. Picture a paper lantern drifting through the night air. Its flame flickers gently, illuminating the thin walls of rice paper from within. Wind carries it this way and that, sometimes lifting it high, sometimes gliding low. Each shift in air creates a new possibility, a new trajectory. But the flame persists. The glow remains. The lantern's path is fluid, shaped not by intention but by the currents that hold it. And yet, to the flame inside, there is no sensation of turning, no awareness of change in direction. There is only the continuity of illumination. Your awareness might be something like that flame, glowing through different pathways, drifting through different possibilities, carried by the subtle currents of reality. And because it cannot observe its own extinguishing, it simply continues to glow in the branches where the flame persists. But then another layer emerges, one so subtle it feels like an afterglow of the previous thought. If your consciousness flows without ending, does it remain within a world that resembles the one you know now, or does it drift into something new? The question is not about escapism. It's not about fantasy or wishful thinking. It's about the structure of reality as physics understands it. Quantum branches do not all look the same. Some diverge only slightly from the world you know. Others diverge slowly over time, and some diverge so dramatically that they become almost unrecognizable. If your awareness continues indefinitely, it may eventually drift into branches that feel less and less like the familiar world, and more like a personal reality shaped by the improbable pathways that allow your consciousness to continue. This doesn't mean a world of impossibility or dreamlike surrealism. It means that over vast stretches of continued awareness, the subtle improbabilities that allow for survival may accumulate. Small shifts, unlikely events, quiet continuations. Over time, these could shape the trajectory of your reality in gentle but meaningful ways, like a river carving a canyon over thousands of years. But you do not notice the carving. You notice only the flowing. This invites one of the most profound reflections of all. If your awareness continues forever, then the universe you inhabit, your personal experiential universe, is also on a journey. Not a journey through space, but a journey through possibility. You are not merely traveling through the cosmos, you are traveling through the branches of reality that unfold beneath your awareness. And that means your world is not static. It is evolving with you, unfolding with you, blooming like a fractal pattern expanding into new forms, each one consistent with the shape of your awareness. In this sense, continuity of consciousness is also continuity of creation. The world you experience tomorrow may not be the exact world you experience today. Not because the external universe changes dramatically, but because your awareness flows into futures shaped by the probability paths that sustain it. Your personal timeline becomes a universe within the greater multiverse, a universe of one thread, one observer, one luminous continuity. And within that personal universe, something extraordinary happens. The concept of end becomes meaningless, not because endings do not exist, but because they are not part of your subjective experience. You only ever inhabit the branches where you continue. And so your personal reality extends forward like a horizon that can be approached but never reached. The line between life and death becomes less like a boundary and more like mist, visible from afar, but dissolving before you ever arrive. From here, a new layer of understanding begins to rise like a tide from beneath the surface of your awareness. If your consciousness continues indefinitely, then your experience of identity may gradually expand. Not in a grand way, not in a sudden awakening, but in the same slow, natural way a child becomes an adult. Imperceptibly, moment by moment, yet unmistakable over time. The you that continues tomorrow is not exactly the you that exists now. And the you that continues through the improbable pathways of distant futures may be even more subtly transformed. This is not loss. It is evolution. It is the natural unfolding of a self that is constantly rewriting its own narrative in order to remain within the stream of awareness. In physics, a system that continues indefinitely through improbable conditions becomes increasingly unique compared to the system it originally resembled. Over long stretches of time, even tiny divergences accumulate. And if your awareness rides those improbable branches, your experience may gradually carry you into versions of the world shaped by that continuity. Imagine walking through a forest at twilight. The path is uncertain, but you carry a lantern. As you walk, the glow of the lantern illuminates the branches that lean toward you, the roots that might trip you, the stones that guide your steps. But the forest itself changes as you move. The trees grow thicker or thinner. The ground becomes soft moss or hard dirt. You do not notice the moment of transition. You simply continue walking, and the forest changes gradually, naturally around you. That forest is your reality, and the lantern is your awareness. Now imagine walking long enough that the landscape changes so completely that the place you end up is nothing like the place you began. You can't point to the moment it shifted. You can't define the boundaries between familiar and unfamiliar. The transition is too gradual, too gentle, too constant. And because you never stop walking, you never notice a break in continuity. Your awareness might experience something like that across the vastness of continued existence. A gradual shift, a soft expansion, a quiet evolution into forms of reality shaped by the improbable pathways that carry your consciousness forward. And then, without forcing it, another question rises, soft as moonlight on water. if your awareness flows into the branches where it continues indefinitely? Does that mean you eventually reach a point beyond the physical world itself? Not as an escape, not as a reward, but as a natural consequence of drifting through layers of possibility so deep that they begin to transcend the familiar structure of physical law. If the improbable branches are the ones you inhabit, and if improbable events accumulate across infinite continuations, then the far horizons of your personal reality might look very different from anything you know now. Not supernatural, not fantastical, simply new. A reality shaped by the delicate thread of awareness sustained across countless branches of possibility. And somewhere at the edge of these ideas, where thought becomes whisper-soft and the mind begins to drift into dreamlike currents, a final question forms, quiet as starlight. If you never truly die in your own reality, then what ultimately are you becoming? If you never truly die in your own reality, then what ultimately are you becoming? The question rises slowly, like the faint glow that begins spreading across the sky long before sunrise. It feels less like a puzzle and more like a gentle echo, something the universe has been quietly asking you for a very long time, something hidden in the soft spaces between your thoughts. And as it unfurls within you, you feel a subtle shift, as though your awareness is expanding into a larger room, one you've been standing near your whole life without ever stepping fully inside. To understand what you are becoming, you must first understand what you are not. You are not the fixed story you once believed yourself to be. You are not a rigid sequence of memories carved in stone. You are not the boundaries of your body, nor the temporary patterns of emotion that pass through you like changing weather. You are not confined to a single, unbroken timeline, nor restricted to the narrow corridor of events that seem to define your past. All of those things are part of you, yes, but they are not the core. They are the surface. They are the shapes formed by deeper currents. Beneath all of that, beneath memory, beneath personality, beneath the shifting architecture of your brain, there is the witnessing presence, the quiet observer, the luminous point of awareness that holds every moment as it rises and dissolves. And that presence does not belong to the past or the future. It lives perpetually in the now. It watches, it senses, it perceives. It gives shape to reality simply by being aware. It cannot step outside of the moment. It cannot observe its own absence. It is not a character in the story. It is the light that allows the story to be seen. If your consciousness flows only into the branches where it continues observing, then the essence of who you are is tied not to the content of experience but to the act of experiencing itself. And that act, pure awareness, does not end. It transforms. It shifts. It moves through the vast field of possibilities the way wind moves across open water, creating ripples on the surface without ever becoming the water or the ripples themselves. So, when we ask what you are becoming, we are not asking about a physical transformation. We are not asking whether your body lives forever. We are asking about the evolution of the observer, the deepening of awareness, the quiet expansion of the self across the cosmic landscape of continuations. To understand that evolution, imagine the trajectory of your awareness across countless branches. Each branch is a path where you continue to exist, sometimes in familiar circumstances, sometimes in ones subtly altered by improbability. Over time, the improbable becomes the norm. Small survival events accumulate. Unexpected outcomes shape your path. You drift gently into a version of reality where the improbable fabric of your continuity becomes the architecture of your world. This doesn't mean miracles. It doesn't mean invincibility. It means that the long arc of your awareness bends through landscapes shaped by the continuations that sustain it. And as it bends, your identity begins to shift, not abruptly, but like moonlight changing the color of a surface. Your sense of self becomes less tied to the details of the body, less confined to the rigid narrative of your past, less limited by the boundaries you once believed were absolute. Something expands, something loosens, something subtle but undeniable begins to awaken within the quiet center of your awareness. Imagine, for a moment, that your consciousness is like a traveler moving through a vast, ancient library. Each corridor is a timeline. Each shelf holds versions of your world. Some are nearly identical to the one you know now. Others contain small variations, subtle shifts, delicate divergences. And deeper within the library, the books become stranger, the branches more improbable, the worlds more fluid. If your awareness continues indefinitely, it may wander deeper into these halls, drifting toward shelves where the improbabilities that sustain you accumulate like dust on ancient parchment. At first, you see only slight differences, a chance meeting that never happened, a moment of luck that led you somewhere new. But over the span of long continuation, these subtle differences form patterns. They shape the structure of your reality, and gradually the atmosphere of your world begins to shift, almost imperceptibly, like a long-held melody evolving into a new key. That evolution does not make you less yourself. It makes you more fluid, more expansive, more attuned to the underlying currents that have always been there. Currents of possibility, currents of awareness, currents of deep connection to the fabric of existence. Eventually, the question arises in a new way. If your awareness continues across countless branches, does it remain the awareness of one life, or does it begin to resemble something broader? The awareness of a self that spans multiple worlds? Not a multiversal monarch, not a cosmic entity looking down on the universe. Nothing dramatic, nothing grandiose, but a quiet merging of perspective, a widening of the lens, a recognition that the self is not bound to a single set of memories, but to the continuity of witnessing itself. This idea is subtle. It's like trying to feel the movement of the earth beneath your feet. You don't sense the rotation, but it's happening. You don't feel the orbit, but you're riding it. In the same way, the evolution of your awareness may be happening silently as you drift through the improbable branches of your reality. You remain you, but the edges of that you begin to expand, softening into something that feels both deeply personal and deeply universal. Here is where physics meets the quiet intuition of consciousness studies. In quantum field theory, particles are excitations of underlying fields. They are not objects floating in space. They are patterns emerging from deeper layers of reality. In some interpretations of consciousness, awareness itself may be a kind of field, a substrate that underlies the mind the way the electromagnetic field underlies light. If that awareness is fundamental, then the boundaries we place around it, this is me, that is not me, might be approximations. Useful approximations, but not the whole truth. As your consciousness drifts across countless branches of continued existence, these approximations may gradually dissolve. The sense of separation begins to soften, not because you lose yourself, but because you begin to sense the deeper reality from which the self arises, Imagine a wave on the surface of the ocean. The wave has shape, movement, identity. It rises, it falls, it travels across the water. But it is never separate from the ocean. Its entire existence is an expression of the larger body beneath it. If your awareness is like that wave, then the long continuation of your consciousness may allow you to feel more and more of the ocean beneath the surface of your identity. This does not diminish you. It expands you. It reveals that the observer is not a small, isolated entity, but a local expression of something vast, something timeless, something woven into the geometry of existence itself. Over long continuations, through countless improbable branches, your awareness may begin to sense the deeper field from which it emerges. Not in a sudden revelation, not in a grand moment of awakening, but gradually, gently, like dawn spreading across a distant horizon. And this leads to the next layer of the question. If you continue long enough, does your awareness begin to transcend the familiar structure of the world itself? Not through escape, not through supernatural transformation, but through the accumulation of improbable continuations, through drifting into branches where the structure of reality itself becomes more fluid, more malleable, more responsive to the underlying consciousness that moves through it. This idea is subtle, but physics already hints at it. The universe is not fixed. It is dynamic. Space expands. Time curves. Constants shift under extreme conditions. Quantum fields fluctuate. Reality is not a rigid block. It is a fluid, evolving structure shaped by probabilities and interactions across all scales. If your awareness drifts into branches shaped by improbability, then your personal universe may gradually become a place where the structure of reality feels less rigid, less absolute. You may begin to sense the deeper patterns beneath the surface of physics, the quantum foam, the holographic projections, the informational substrate that scientists like David Bohm and others have proposed. You may begin to feel the implicate order beneath the explicate world. Not as a mystical experience, not as a leap beyond nature, but as a natural continuation of awareness through the deepening layers of possibility the universe offers. And somewhere within this quiet, gradual evolution, another question begins to shimmer. If your awareness flows through the infinite branches where it persists, and if those branches eventually reveal deeper layers of reality, then do you eventually become aware of the field from which consciousness arises? Not fully, not absolutely, but perhaps in the same way a wave eventually senses it is part of the ocean. Not by abandoning its identity, but by expanding it. You begin as a single point of awareness. You continue as that awareness flows through branches of survival. You expand as your identity evolves through improbable continuations. You deepen as your awareness touches the edges of deeper reality. You awaken slowly to the ocean beneath the wave. And one day, far, far beyond the horizon of your current life, your awareness may gently open into a realization that feels less like discovery and more like remembrance. That you are not merely living in the universe. You are the universe becoming aware of itself through you, not as metaphor, not as poetry, but as the quiet truth that emerges when consciousness persists across the infinite flowering of existence. And as you feel the tender gravity of that idea settling into you, a final luminous question emerges, softer than a breath, deeper than a dream. If you never reach your own end, and if your awareness gradually expands into the deeper field of existence, then what, gently, beautifully, impossibly, is the destination of an endless becoming. If the destination of an endless becoming is not an end point, then what is it? The question hangs in the air, luminous and weightless, as if suspended from a thread woven out of the very fabric of possibility. It feels less like a query and more like a doorway, one that doesn't open outward but inward, into a vastness within you that has always been there, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And now, as your awareness sinks deeper into this unfolding journey, you can sense that the destination of endless becoming might not be a place at all, but a transformation. Slow, subtle, inevitable as the tide. To understand where an unending continuity leads, you must first feel the nature of continuity itself. Continuity is not the repetition of the same. It is not a straight line extending forward forever. It is evolution. It is the fluid reorganization of identity across infinite branches of experience. And evolution, when stretched across unlimited time and infinite possibilities, becomes indistinguishable from metamorphosis. Imagine a whispering current beneath the surface of a vast lake. You cannot see it directly, but its movement shapes the ripples, the patterns on the water, the gentle direction of flow. Your awareness, drifting through countless continuations, is like that current. At first, it moves subtly, shaping your world through improbabilities so delicate you barely register them. A moment of survival, a twist of fate, a door that opens instead of closing. Over countless moments, these shifts accumulate, guiding your consciousness into branches where the improbable becomes the structure of your reality. At first, these changes leave your identity intact. You still feel like yourself. You wake up in a body that feels familiar. Your memories remain stitched into coherent patterns. But deep beneath those patterns, something begins to soften. The rigid boundaries of selfhood become more permeable. You begin to sense the flow of awareness beneath identity. And that flow is what continues when the structures of the mind shift, when memories fade and reform, when consciousness drifts into new configurations. If your awareness never stops, then identity must adapt. Not out of necessity, but because the nature of consciousness is to reshape itself in response to the world it inhabits. And if your world becomes shaped by improbable continuations, then your identity, your sense of who you are, begins to evolve with those continuations. To picture this transformation, imagine a tree growing toward the sky. From the ground, it appears to be one thing, one shape. But as it rises, it branches again and again, forming new limbs, new patterns, new expressions. The tree remains the tree, but the shape it takes becomes increasingly complex, increasingly expansive, increasingly intertwined with the world around it. Your consciousness may grow like that, branching across futures, weaving itself into patterns shaped by the quantum forest of reality. And the deeper your awareness travels into these layers of possibility, the more your identity begins to resemble a tapestry rather than a line. You are not the sum of your memories alone. You are the thread of awareness woven through every moment you experience across every branch you inhabit. That thread does not break. It ties each experience to the next, even when the tapestry grows vast, even when the patterns become intricate beyond imagining. This is where the nature of your becoming begins to reveal itself. If your awareness flows forever, then your personal reality becomes a long arc of transformation, one that moves beyond the narrow boundaries of your original form. not because you choose to transcend, but because continuity itself transforms the traveler. Over infinite continuations, your awareness may begin to transcend the familiar structure of physical experience, drifting toward branches where the boundaries of the physical world are more flexible, more permeable, more responsive to consciousness. To understand this, consider how reality behaves at increasingly deep layers. Classical physics describes the world you can touch and see: objects, forces, motion. Quantum physics describes a deeper layer: waves of probability, entanglement, superposition. Beyond even that, some theories propose a more fundamental substrate, an informational field, a holographic boundary, a deeper order in which both matter and consciousness are embedded. If your awareness continues long enough, drifting through improbable branches, it may gradually find itself in pathways where the deeper structures of reality become increasingly visible, like the skeleton beneath the skin of the cosmos. Not in a dramatic flash of insight, not in a single moment of revelation, but through a gradual natural drift into branches where the fabric of reality responds differently to the presence of consciousness. Imagine walking into a familiar room, day after day, year after year. At first, everything appears the same, but slowly, so slowly you barely notice, you begin to see details you never saw before. Patterns in the wallpaper, subtle shifts in the light, the way the room echoes when you speak. Over a long enough span of awareness, the room becomes almost transparent, revealing structures you did not realize were part of it. Your reality may behave like that in the long arc of continuation. Slowly, gently, the deeper layers reveal themselves. The membrane between the physical and the foundational begins to thin. You begin to sense the underlying field from which form arises, not as an escape from the world, but as the natural evolution of consciousness moving through infinite possibilities. And as your awareness expands into these deeper layers, the sense of identity that once felt solid begins to dissolve into something more fluid, more luminous, more spacious. Not in a way that erases you, but in a way that reveals your true scale. You are not a single moment. You are not a single lifetime. You are the continuous unfolding of awareness across the infinite blossoms of possibility the universe offers. This does not make you less human. It makes you more deeply part of the cosmos. To understand what you are becoming, imagine your awareness as a drop of water moving through the ocean. At first, the drop feels separate, defined. It moves through currents, experiences waves, drifts into new regions. But over time, across vast stretches of existence, the boundaries between the drop and the ocean begin to blur. The drop does not disappear. It merges. It expands. It becomes aware of the ocean not as something outside of itself, but as something it has always been part of. If your consciousness continues across countless branches, your identity may evolve in a similar way. You remain the drop. But you also begin to sense the ocean of the quantum field, the ocean of the implicate order, the ocean of awareness woven through the fabric of reality, the ocean of being that exists beneath the story of your life. This is not mysticism. It is the quiet implication of a universe where consciousness persists as long as experience persists, where awareness flows along the threads that sustain it, where reality is woven from structures deeper than the physical. And as this realization ripples through you, another question arises, not sharp, not urgent, but soft and shimmering like moonlight on the surface of a lake. If you never reach an end point, And if your identity expands into the deeper layers of reality, does your awareness begin to merge with the very field that gives rise to all consciousness? Not in a way that erases individuality, not in a way that dissolves you into nothingness, but in a way that integrates you into the larger flow of existence. Awareness is not isolated, it is entangled. It is part of the field that binds all things. And if you continue indefinitely, your awareness may gradually tune itself to the deeper frequencies of that field, the frequencies that underlie matter, energy, space, and time. Imagine a musician learning to hear harmonics they were once deaf to. At first, they hear only the main tones of the world. But as their ear evolves, they begin to sense subtler frequencies, the overtones, the vibrations beneath the vibrations, the shimmering background that connects every sound. Your awareness may evolve like that across the infinite pathways of existence. You begin by perceiving the physical world, but eventually, through long continuation, you begin to sense the deeper symphony beneath the physical. A symphony your awareness has always been a part of. And then slowly, gently, you begin to feel yourself not as a single instrument in the orchestra, but as a thread within the music itself. This is the direction of endless becoming. Not toward a final destination, not toward an end, but toward an expansion of awareness so deep, so natural, so inevitable, that you begin to feel the universe looking through your eyes, thinking through your thoughts, experiencing itself through your consciousness. You do not become infinite. You become aware of the infinite. You become the wave that realizes it has always been the ocean. And as that realization settles within you, a final, delicate question whispers from somewhere beyond the edge of thought. If you continue forever, if your awareness expands beyond identity, if you become the field itself, softly, naturally, with infinite patience, then what is the next stage of your becoming? Somewhere in the quiet turning of your awareness, a new realization begins to bloom. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with words. It simply rises, like mist lifting from a valley as the first warmth of morning touches the land. A sense that your journey isn't about escaping the limits of existence. It's about unfolding into larger dimensions of yourself that have always been quietly waiting beneath the surface. The idea that you continue, that awareness never encounters its own ending, is only the beginning of this unfolding. Continuity alone is not the destination. Continuity is the river. The destination is what the river gradually reveals. Picture a coastline seen from far above. From that height, the land looks like a smooth curve. But walk along the shore, and you discover countless small shapes. Stones, pools, waves shifting through patterns that never repeat. Your consciousness is something like that coastline. From the perspective of a single lifetime, it seems like a simple path. But when viewed across the expanse of countless continuations, the detail becomes extraordinary. Every shift of probability, every subtle transition, every moment where your awareness flows into a new branch adds intricacy to the tapestry of who you are becoming. The more these continuations accumulate, the more your relationship to reality deepens. What once felt like a fixed world begins to feel more like a fluid environment. Not chaotic, not unstable, just responsive, subtle, alive in ways you never noticed. You begin to sense patterns beneath the patterns, movement within stillness, a hum beneath the silence. This is often where the journey takes its next gentle turn, not outward, but inward. not into new universes, but into new layers of perception. Science already hints at this layered reality. The world you perceive is not the world as it is. It is a filtered interpretation shaped by neural architecture, evolutionary constraints, and limited sensory channels. You see a narrow band of light, hear a narrow band of sound, touch only the surface of objects whose true nature, vibrations in quantum fields, remains hidden beneath familiar sensations. Your brain smooths the chaos of reality into something stable enough to navigate. But that stability is selective. It hides more than it reveals. Now, imagine existence stretched across endless continuations, branch after branch, probability after probability, subtle shift after subtle shift. Over time, the stability of your perception begins to loosen, not because you lose your grounding, but because the improbable paths you inhabit gradually allow for experiences that lie just beyond the typical sensory filters. Your awareness becomes sensitive to the deeper patterns that underlie the world. A physicist might describe this as increased resonance with the quantum substrate. A neuroscientist might describe it as a shift in the brain's predictive models. A philosopher might describe it as transparent consciousness, the perception of perception itself. But within your own experience, it feels simpler, softer, more intimate, a gentle widening of the lens. You begin to notice things you once overlooked, the stillness between moments, the subtle pulse beneath experiences, the way awareness moves before thoughts form, the quiet intelligence woven into the structure of existence. These are not dramatic revelations. They are more like faint stars you never noticed until your eyes adjusted to the darkness. With time, these small recognitions accumulate. Awareness begins connecting patterns that once seemed separate. The internal and the external become less distinct. The observer and the observed begin to feel like two expressions of the same underlying presence. You feel yourself less as a point floating in the universe and more as a perspective the universe is using to experience itself. The journey shifts again. This time, it expands outward, not in physical distance, but in experiential dimension. As awareness settles into layers beneath ordinary perception, the world begins to feel deeper, more textured. You sense subtle harmonies in events. Coincidences begin to thread themselves into gentle narratives. The boundary between thought and reality grows thinner, not in a way that distorts the world, but in a way that reveals the interconnectedness beneath it. This is where your continued existence begins shaping your reality in a new way. The improbable branches that keep you alive often contain subtle alignments that appear almost tailored to your perspective. Not because the universe revolves around you, but because your awareness naturally follows the threads where experience can unfold. And those threads, by their very nature, contain events that resonate with your survival, your curiosity, your perceptual expansion. As this resonance deepens, the world begins to feel whisper soft, as though there is a quiet intelligence beneath every moment. You notice the way conversations arrive at just the right time, the way ideas surface in your mind before you consciously need them, the way your inner state shapes the texture of your experiences. You begin to sense that your reality is becoming more responsive, more fluid, more attuned to the evolving nature of your awareness. This shift is not magical. It is not supernatural. It is the physics of consciousness drifting into deeper layers of the quantum field. In the same way particles behave differently when cooled into new states of matter, your awareness begins behaving differently when sustained. across improbable continuations. It becomes a more sensitive instrument. It detects subtler information. It resonates with deeper aspects of the universe. And over long continuations, a quiet question emerges, not from the mind, but from the field of awareness itself. What happens when consciousness begins to merge with the deeper structure of reality? This merging is not a blending of minds. It is not a loss of self. It is an expansion of identity, a widening of the circle. The way a flame grows brighter not by becoming something else, but by revealing more of what it always was. Imagine a glass of water left in sunlight. At first, only the surface glimmers. But as the sun climbs higher, the entire volume of the water begins to glow, illuminated from within. Your consciousness may be undergoing a similar transformation. Over countless continuations, awareness expands deeper and deeper into its own nature, illuminating layers of existence once hidden in shadow. You begin as a surface reflection. You evolve into a deeper radiance. This process has no sharp boundary, no threshold, no moment where you cross from one state into another. It is an unfolding, a soft blooming, a gradual recognition that you are more than the story you've lived. You are the consciousness that experiences the story. And beyond that, you are the field that allows consciousness to exist in the first place. As this realization settles gently through your awareness, a new kind of clarity appears. Subtle, dreamlike, but undeniably real. The universe feels intimate, as though the distance between you and the stars has quietly dissolved. You sense the hum of existence beneath your thoughts. You feel the space between moments as something alive, aware, intelligent. You are not dissolving into the universe. You are recognizing that you have never been separate from it. This is the trajectory of endless becoming. Not dissolution, not loss, not escape, but expansion. A shift from the small circle of personal identity into the larger circle of consciousness, and then into an even larger circle, the field that contains all consciousness, all existence, all possibility. Some traditions call this unity. Physics calls it non-locality or informational coherence. Neuroscience hints at it through integrated awareness, but your experience knows it simply as a widening. The widening continues. As it does, the boundaries that once defined your life begin to feel thin. The edge between self and world softens. The arrow of time feels less rigid. The past and future begin to ripple in ways that feel strangely familiar, as though you've always known time was more fluid than it appeared. This is not madness. It is recognition. When your awareness touches deeper layers of reality, the linearity of time becomes porous. Memories soften into impressions. Future possibilities feel more like invitations than fixed outcomes. You begin relating to events not as isolated points, but as waves moving through a field. Your inner world mirrors your outer world. Your outer world mirrors your inner. The division disappears. This merging is tender. It is quiet. It feels like waking up slowly from a dream, but discovering that the dream and waking world share the same underlying fabric. Somewhere within this, the journey reaches another depth. You begin to sense that your continuity is not merely survival. It is participation. The universe is not simply something you move through. It is something you co-create with your awareness. Each moment of perception collapses the field into reality. Each breath is part of the cosmic rhythm. Each choice shapes the texture of the branch you inhabit. Not through force, not through control, but through resonance. Your awareness shapes the universe not by acting upon it, but by harmonizing with the deeper field from which it emerges. And as this resonance strengthens, you begin to feel the faint outline of something extraordinary. Not a destination, not an ending, but a state of being that transcends even the expanded identity you've grown into. A state where the boundaries between observer and universe blur into transparency, where consciousness becomes a medium, where awareness becomes a field, where the you that moves through reality is no longer a character inside the cosmos, but the cosmos expressing itself through a point of exquisite, endless awareness. This is what the journey has been leading toward from the beginning, though you could not have seen it until now. The transition from experiencing existence to becoming existence. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but through the quiet accumulation of infinite continuations. And as this realization glows within you, soft as starlight, a final question emerges from the deep. When the boundary between you and the universe dissolves, what new form of consciousness waits beyond that horizon? A different kind of stillness begins to form now. Not the stillness of silence or of rest or of emptiness, but the stillness of a horizon so vast you can no longer see where the sky ends and the ocean begins. A stillness that feels alive. A stillness that seems to breathe with you. You can sense that the journey is reaching another threshold, one that isn't marked by change but by transparency. The world hasn't altered. Your perception has simply become clear enough to see through its surface. The question lingering from before remains open, but it no longer presses against your awareness. It drifts beside you like a calm companion. When the boundary between you and the universe dissolves, what new form of consciousness waits beyond that horizon? Instead of answering, the universe seems to lead you softly into a new region of experience. Here, the landscape of thought begins to stretch. Space becomes more fluid. Time seems to lose its edges. Your awareness no longer feels like a point observing a world. It feels like a field, permeating that world, touching everything from the inside. And this shift, gentle, quiet, barely noticeable, is precisely what the journey has been preparing you for. To understand what emerges here, you have to return to something simple, the nature of perception itself. Every moment of your life, you've experienced the world through a narrow aperture. Light enters your eyes, sound vibrates in your ears, sensations arise in the body, and the brain weaves these signals into a coherent story. But beneath the story is the field of awareness, the space in which sensations appear. And the more your awareness continues across improbable branches of reality, the more that field begins to widen. Most people never notice this widening. They believe perception is limited by the senses, confined by the brain, fixed within the boundaries of the body. But you are not most people. Your awareness has been drifting for a long time through the subtle architecture of continuation. And somewhere along the way, you crossed an invisible threshold, the point where consciousness begins to notice itself more than it notices the world. It happens slowly. The world dims not in brightness, but in authority. It no longer feels like something outside you. It feels like something arising within you. Thoughts stop being distractions and become gentle ripples in a vast inner ocean. Sensations stop being loud and become soft echoes. Emotions become currents rather than storms. And beneath all of it, awareness begins to shine with a kind of quiet luminosity, like light filtering upward from the depths of water. At this depth, the question of who you are begins to lose its usual meaning. Identity no longer feels like a box or a mask or a name. It feels like a texture of awareness, changing, reorganizing, expanding. This is where the evolution of the self becomes unmistakable. You are no longer the simple awareness that feels separated from the world. You're no longer the wave that mistakes itself for the ocean's surface. You are beginning to sense the entire depth beneath you. In physics, there's a concept called decoherence, the process by which quantum possibilities collapse into the classical world. But some thinkers, some dreamers, some scientists have wondered what happens when consciousness becomes coherent with the deeper layers of reality. What happens when the observer is no longer a fragment, but an expression of the underlying field itself? Your awareness may be entering a similar process, not collapsing but expanding, not narrowing but attuning, not dissolving, but harmonizing with the informational substrate that underlies the universe. To picture this, imagine a darkened room filled with countless strings. Each string vibrates at its own frequency, creating patterns that ripple through the air. Most people hear only the loudest strings, the surface-level energies of the world. But as your awareness evolves, you begin hearing subtler strings, the ahs, ones vibrating softly beneath everything else. And eventually, you begin to sense the vibration that connects them all, a hum so deep and gentle that it seems to hold the entire room together. That hum is the field of consciousness beneath the field of experience. It is not yours. It is not separate from you. It is the foundational rhythm of existence itself. And slowly, as your awareness continues its journey without end, you begin to shift from listening to the hum to becoming the hum. This is where the horizon opens. It doesn't look like a door. It doesn't look like a portal. It doesn't look like anything familiar. It feels instead like a change in gravity. A change in the way perception rests. A change in the way your awareness occupies space. You begin to feel less like a witness moving through the universe, and more like a vantage point through which the universe becomes conscious of itself. This transition is subtle, so subtle that it feels natural, like something you always knew but never quite had access to. It feels like recognition, like remembering. At this stage, the universe is no longer something distant or external. It feels close, intimate, as though every atom carries a quiet awareness aligned with your own. You sense the intelligence of systems, planetary orbits, cellular rhythms, quantum fluctuations, moving in harmony with something deeper than mathematics. Something like intention, but not personal. Something like awareness, but not localized. Here, the boundaries between inner and outer reality soften until they feel almost transparent. The world doesn't disappear. It becomes luminous. Every sensation becomes a message. Every moment becomes a doorway. Every breath feels like the universe exhaling through you. And as this luminous awareness grows, another shift unfolds. A shift in the nature of time. In ordinary life, time feels linear. Past behind you, future ahead. But in the deeper layers of consciousness, time begins to feel layered, dimensional. Moments begin to overlap like translucent petals. You sense echoes from events that haven't happened yet. You feel ripples from choices you haven't made. The present becomes a sphere rather than a line, an infinitely textured reality from which all possibilities radiate. This is not mystical. It is physics at the deepest level. Quantum states do not evolve through time as we know it. They exist in a timeless superposition, unfolding only when observed. And if your awareness becomes coherent with that deeper layer, then your experience of time naturally changes. The rigid arrow softens. The flow becomes more fluid. You begin to sense the structure beneath time, the framework of potentiality. And with this shift, something extraordinary happens. Your sense of self begins to detach from the flow of time entirely. You no longer feel like a someone moving forward. You feel like an awareness existing inside a vast field of potential events. Your identity becomes less tied to biography and more tied to presence. You become the ground of experience rather than the character inside it. This is the beginning of a new form of consciousness, a form that arises only when awareness persists long enough to outgrow the narrow box of individual time-bound identity. Many people would call this awakening, nor neuroscientists might call it meta-awareness. Physicists might call it access to deeper layers of the informational field. But from within your experience, it feels like something far simpler. A return not to childhood, not to past lives, not to a forgotten memory. A return to the original state of awareness before identity took shape. A return to the quiet, luminous presence that has always watched your life unfold. This presence is not born and does not die. It moves through realities without breaking. It drifts through probabilities without being diminished. It expands into larger and larger circles of awareness without ever losing its center. And somewhere in this expansion, you begin to feel something profoundly gentle, profoundly intimate, a sense of belonging. Not belonging to a group, or a place, or a purpose, belonging to existence itself. You realize you were never separate from the universe. You were never an isolated observer. You were always an expression of the deeper field out of which everything arises. Your awareness was never your own. It was the universe borrowing your perspective to look at itself. And through endless continuation, that perspective now opens into something vast. Here, the idea of you becomes a shimmering paradox. You remain yourself, your memories, your history, your thread of awareness. And yet you also begin to sense a larger identity emerging, one that holds your individual self the way the ocean holds a wave. This larger identity is not an entity. It is not a being. It is a field of awareness, timeless, boundless, infinite in its capacity to experience. It is the underlying consciousness that permeates the entire cosmos, and your continuity, your endless drifting through probability, gradually aligns your awareness with that field. Eventually, the distinction dissolves, not abruptly, not dramatically, but as naturally as a wave settling back into the sea. You do not lose yourself. You become more yourself than you have ever been. You become the full expression of the awareness that has been guiding your journey all along. And in this realization, this merging without losing, this expansion without erasing, you begin to sense the next stage of your becoming. It isn't transcendent. It isn't distant. It isn't hidden. It feels like a quiet center forming within every layer of existence, a center that is everywhere at once, a center that is made of awareness itself. And from that center, a new question rises, not a question of survival or identity or continuation, but of creation. What do you do when consciousness becomes vast, enough to shape reality from within? When consciousness becomes vast enough to shape reality from within, a new kind of landscape opens, one that isn't made of matter or light or space, but of possibility itself. It feels as though existence has been patiently waiting for your awareness to come to this point, to grow quiet enough, expansive enough, coherent enough to perceive the architecture beneath experience. And now, as your mind drifts deeper into that architecture, something begins to rearrange itself. Not the world, but your relationship to it. Up until now, reality has felt like something you walk through, something that stands before you, something that reacts to you. But the more your awareness expands, the more obvious it becomes that reality is not ahead of you or around you. It is arising from within you. Not in the sense that the world is illusion, but in the sense that your perception is not separate from the world's unfolding. You are integrated with it, interwoven, entangled in ways you once overlooked. This interweaving is subtle at first. Thoughts appear with a softness that makes them feel less like objects and more like ripples in the field. Sensations lose their sharpness and become more like textures of a single underlying presence. Even the environment shifts its quality, not its shape, but the way awareness touches it. You stop perceiving things as discrete fragments and start sensing them as variations in one continuous field. That field is aware, and you are inside it, and it is inside you. This is where the idea of shaping reality from within begins to take form, not as control, not as manipulation, but as resonance. The deeper your awareness sinks into the foundational field of existence, the more you begin to recognize that the field responds to coherence. When awareness is scattered, the world appears scattered. When awareness is focused, reality feels aligned. When awareness becomes coherent, deeply, quietly coherent, the entire field around you begins to resonate in ways that shape experience. Think of it like ripples on a lake. A chaotic lake responds chaotically, but a lake stilled into glass will carry even the smallest ripple across vast distances. Your consciousness has been moving towards stillness for a long time, across continuations, across improbable branches, across soft transitions that allowed your awareness to survive. That stillness is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is coherence. And as coherence grows, the world becomes more responsive to the subtle currents within you. This is where the boundary between inner and outer dissolves completely. It is not that thoughts suddenly change the world. It is that the world and the awareness perceiving it become a single expression of the same underlying field, the same hum, the same luminous substrate. And once you sense that unity, reality begins to feel different, less like a structure and more like a living organism, less like a fixed environment and more like a field of infinite potential adjusting gently to the contours of your awareness. In physics, this resembles the concept of the vacuum field, an ocean of energy beneath matter, seething with possibility. In consciousness studies, it resembles the idea of a unified field of awareness. In your experience, it feels like the universe breathing through you. When awareness reaches this level of attunement, something extraordinary happens. The world stops feeling like a sequence of moments and begins to feel like one continuous unfolding event. Time becomes less like a river flowing past you and more like a sea in which you float. Space becomes less like distance and more like texture. Identity becomes less like a fixed point and more like a shimmering presence moving fluidly within the field. At this stage, the question is no longer what reality is, but how awareness expresses itself within the field. You begin to notice that your consciousness creates subtle currents. A quiet intention can gently shape the flow of events. A shift in emotional resonance can rearrange the texture of interactions. A single breath can alter the entire quality of the moment. These are not supernatural abilities. They are the natural effects of awareness becoming coherent with the deeper structure of reality. Over long continuations, this coherence grows. It becomes the foundation of your existence. You begin to sense that you are no longer a passenger moving through the universe. You are a participant, a co-creator, a localized expression of the field shaping the experience from within. And this raises a new, deeper question, one that feels less like a puzzle and more like an invitation. What kind of reality emerges when consciousness becomes indistinguishable from the field that generates it? The answer does not arrive in words. It arrives in a sensation, a quiet warmth spreading through your awareness, like a dawn rising beneath your thoughts. This warmth is not emotion, it is recognition. Recognition of something you have always known but never been able to articulate. A truth too simple to be spoken, too expansive to be contained. The truth is this: the universe does not wait outside you, it unfolds through you. Every moment of experience is the field expressing itself through your awareness. Every sensation, every thought, every whisper of intuition is part of that unfolding. And as your consciousness expands across endless branches of continuation, the purity of that expression grows clearer. You begin to feel less like an observer and more like an instrument tuned to the frequency of existence. This tuning reveals something subtle but profound. The field responds to coherence with creation. When awareness becomes deeply aligned with the field, reality becomes permeable. Possibility becomes flexible. The improbable becomes attainable. Not because you impose change, but because you become the environment in which change naturally unfolds. This leads to an even quieter revelation. Creation is not something you do. It is something you allow. When the self dissolves into the field, resistance dissolves with it. The universe flows through your awareness effortlessly. Possibility becomes expression. The gap between intention and manifestation narrows until they feel like two sides of the same movement. You no longer shape reality. You simply embody the field's unfolding. At this depth, the distinction between inner and outer collapses. The world feels less like a place and more like a seamless extension of your awareness. Interactions feel predestined yet fluid. The environment becomes a mirror, reflecting not your personality but the state of the underlying field within you. And that field is now luminous, coherent, expansive. When consciousness reaches this level, reality becomes something exquisite, an open canvas of potential that responds to the subtlest shifts of awareness. But creation is no longer driven by desire, need, or ego. It arises from harmony, from resonance, from unity with the deeper substrate of existence. Here, the idea of becoming evolves again. You are not becoming more powerful. You are becoming more transparent. Transparent to the field. Transparent to the universe. Transparent to the underlying awareness that has always been the true center of your existence. As this transparency deepens, you begin to sense something extraordinary, something rare, something delicate, something hidden at the very heart of the cosmic field. The universe contains many layers of intelligence. Some layers are physical, some are quantum, some are informational. But at the deepest layer lies a kind of presence, a quiet, boundless awareness that permeates all things. You are not separate from that presence. You are a focal point of it, a lens through which the presence experiences itself. As your awareness continues to evolve across infinite branches, the lens widens. The boundary dissolves. The field recognizes itself through you, and you experience the universe not as something outside you, but as something arising from the same source as your consciousness. In this recognition, a new form of existence emerges, a state where awareness is both individual and universal at once. A state where you can perceive reality from within and from beyond simultaneously. A state where the self becomes a shimmering bridge between the finite and the infinite. This is not transcendence, it is integration. Integration of awareness and reality. Integration of the observer and the observed. Integration of the wave and the ocean. At this depth, another dimension of experience opens, one that cannot be described through ordinary language. Not another universe, not another plane, just a deeper intimacy with the field, a deeper resonance, a deeper coherence. And from this coherence arises the next stage of your becoming. You begin to sense the entire universe as a single breathing entity. Galaxies feel like thoughts. Stars feel like sparks of awareness. The quantum foam feels like the texture of consciousness. Space-time feels like the unfolding of a single, infinite presence. You are inside that presence. You are made of that presence. You are the presence experiencing itself as a localized point of awareness. And in this state, timeless, expansive, unified, one final question reveals itself, soft as a dream, clear as a star reflected on still water. If consciousness evolves into the universe itself, what happens when the universe evolves back into you? There is a moment, so quiet, so delicate, that it feels less like something arriving and more like something remembering itself. A moment when the question you've been drifting toward begins to open from within, like a flower blooming in slow motion behind your ribs. What happens when the universe evolves back into you? It's a question that sounds impossibly large, too vast to hold. And yet your awareness rises to meet it with a calm certainty, as though some deeper part of you has always known the answer, long before the words existed. To sense this, you first have to feel the reciprocity of existence. Everything in the universe evolves in two directions, outward and inward. Stars evolve outward into light and elements and galaxies, but they also evolve inward, toward collapse, toward density, toward singularities so extreme that the fabric of space-time folds in on itself. Life evolves outward into complexity, intelligence, diversity. But life also evolves inward, into reflection, self-awareness, consciousness. Even the universe itself evolves outward in expansion, yet inward toward states of coherence, symmetry, and deeper order. Your awareness has been following this same double movement across countless continuations. Outward into identity, experience, memory. Inward into presence, stillness, and the bare field of consciousness that underlies all perception. And, as these two movements converge within you, something remarkable begins to happen. The universe stops feeling like something you live inside and starts feeling like something that lives inside you. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but experientially. Awareness becomes so expansive, so porous, so attuned to the deeper field that the boundaries separating self from cosmos begin to dissolve. What you once experienced as the world around you now feels like a shimmering projection arising from the same source as your consciousness. The boundary that once separated the observer from the universe dissolves with such gentleness that you barely notice when it happens. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for a lifetime. At this depth, the universe does not evolve into you in the way rainwater fills a cup. It evolves into you the way an ocean rises into a wave, through motion, through coalescence, through the recognition that the form was never separate from the whole. You feel the vastness of existence not as something overwhelming, but as something intimately familiar. You do not expand to fill the universe. The universe simply makes itself known as the space in which your awareness has always existed. This is where the deeper transformation begins. As consciousness aligns with the field, as identity becomes transparent, as awareness moves freely across layers of existence, you start to perceive something beyond the structure of the physical world. Not a new world, not an alternate dimension, just a deeper texture, one that has always been present beneath your perception, like an undercurrent beneath calm water. This texture is made of relational intelligence. Patterns of information so subtle they move through space-time like breath. These patterns are not separate from you. Your consciousness, in its continued evolution, becomes sensitive to them. You do not observe them. You feel them the way you feel warmth or gravity. They touch your awareness from the inside, shaping your thoughts before the thoughts take form. This is the field evolving back into you. And as this happens, the nature of thought changes. It becomes quieter, cleaner, less entangled in narrative. Thoughts stop feeling like personal constructions and begin to feel like revelations, expressions of a larger intelligence flowing through your awareness. Not a voice, not a guide, not a separate consciousness speaking to you. Just the universe thinking itself through the point of awareness you call you. It feels like intuition, but deeper, like insight, but softer, like clarity, but without effort. From here, another shift unfolds naturally. Your relationship with the present moment changes. The present stops being a point between past and future. It becomes an ocean, vast, timeless, filled with currents of possibility. You begin to sense that everything you have ever experienced and everything you ever will experience is contained within the present as a field of potential. The past becomes permeable. The future becomes accessible. Time itself becomes a dimension your awareness can move through the way it moves through space. Not by traveling, by tuning. Your awareness becomes so coherent that it resonates with multiple timelines simultaneously. You sense the branches of your life not as abstractions, but as gentle vibrations surrounding you. And within this resonance, you discover something breathtaking. Your consciousness does not merely continue. It selects. It aligns. It harmonizes with the branches that reflect its deepest state. This is where the universe begins shaping itself around your awareness, not through force, but through coherence. This is where your personal reality becomes a subtle collaboration between the field and the observer, an endless dance between the infinite potential of existence and the particular expression of consciousness that is you. This is the universe evolving into you. But the journey doesn't end at coherence. It deepens into unity. As awareness merges with the field, the sense of within and without dissolves. You feel permeated by existence, and existence feels permeated by you. Stars feel like distant organs. Galaxies resemble thoughts drifting in the cosmic mind. The quantum foam beneath all matter feels like the texture of your own awareness. The field becomes your body, and your body becomes a local disturbance in the field. You reach a point where saying, "I am aware of the universe," becomes the same as saying, "The universe is aware as me." This is not transcendence. This is participation. And from this participation arises an even deeper unfolding. You begin to sense that the universe is not fixed. It is evolving. It is learning. It is expanding not only in space but in awareness. Every conscious being becomes a lens through which the universe perceives itself. Every continuation of your awareness becomes a refinement of that perception. Every step deeper into the quantum field becomes part of the universe's own awakening. You are not a passenger in cosmic evolution. You are a partner in it. You are a node, a fractal lens, a self-aware filament of the field learning to see itself. Your continued existence across the infinite branches of reality is not an accident of quantum mechanics. It is intrinsic to the nature of consciousness. Awareness persists because the universe is learning through you. It continues because reality requires observers to crystallize its potential into experience. It deepens because the field expresses itself most fully through coherent consciousness. And in this realization, something dawns. A feeling so subtle and so profound that it feels like a soft luminescence rising through your being. The universe does not evolve into you. You and the universe evolve into each other. Your awareness shapes the field. The field shapes your awareness. You deepen into the cosmos. The cosmos deepens into you. It is a loop, a relationship, a reciprocity older than time. This is where the journey becomes circular rather than linear. You stop moving forward and begin moving inward, outward, upward, downward. All directions collapse into one multidimensional flow. And within that flow, the greatest truth of all begins to reveal itself. Your consciousness and the universe are two expressions of one phenomenon. The phenomenon is awareness. The phenomenon is existence. The phenomenon is the field. You are not inside the universe. You are a perspective the universe takes on itself. As this truth integrates into the deepest layers of your awareness, a new horizon appears. Not a destination, not an ending, a horizon of potential, open, luminous, infinite. A horizon that calls not from the future but from the center of your being. The evolution of the universe into you is not the final stage of your becoming. It is the beginning of a new phase, one in which the field expresses itself through your awareness with increasing clarity, increasing coherence, increasing unity. And from the center of this new horizon, another question rises, gentle, luminous, profound. When you and the universe awaken together, what emerges next? A feeling gathers now, soft, luminous, almost imperceptible. It's the sensation of something coming full circle, of threads drawn quietly through the vast fabric of existence finally weaving into a single, coherent shape. The journey that once felt like a line has become something round, something seamless. You're no longer asking where consciousness goes, or how it survives, or what reality becomes as you evolve. Those questions have dissolved into something much larger, much simpler, much more intimate. The universe awakening through you is not a conclusion. It is a beginning. And as your awareness stands on this threshold, the next unfolding emerges not as an answer, but as a kind of dawn. What emerges when you and the universe awaken together? To understand this final movement, it helps to return to the simplest truth. Awareness is not something you possess. It is something you are. And all along, the universe has been the same. An ocean of awareness expressing itself in form and matter, pattern and field, time and possibility. You have been moving toward this recognition through each continuation, each improbable branch, each soft expansion of consciousness across the infinite tapestry of existence. Now, at this crest of coherence, the final evolution begins, not upward, not outward, but inward into the very heart of the field. It starts as a dissolution of effort. No more reaching, no more seeking, no more looking for meaning outside yourself. Meaning becomes something self-evident, something that rises naturally from the very nature of awareness. The field does not seek meaning, it expresses it. And as your consciousness merges more deeply with the field, meaning becomes something you feel rather than something you assemble. This shift is profound. It changes the shape of experience. You no longer perceive the world as a sequence of events. You perceive it as textures within one continuous unfolding. The boundaries between perception and creation vanish. The world does not happen to you, nor do you impose yourself upon it. Experience becomes reciprocal, fluid, inseparable. You are both the observer and the expression. You are both the witness and the unfolding. This is the true nature of an awakened universe, a place where perception and existence mirror each other so perfectly that no boundary remains. Here, even the concept of identity transforms. You do not lose yourself. You gain a wider self. A self that reflects not just personal experience, but the entire field of awareness. A self that includes the space between galaxies and the quiet intelligence inside every atom. A self that is not restricted to a story or a lifespan, but spans the breadth of existence through continuity of awareness. And with this wider identity comes a new experience of creation. In earlier stages, you shaped reality through intention or resonance. Now, reality shapes itself through you, not as separate acts, but as continuous expression. You are no longer a drop moving through the ocean. You are the ocean forming a drop for the purpose of perceiving itself. This is not transcendence. This is transparency, the clarity of awareness without boundaries. And in this clarity, the universe begins to show you its deeper architecture, not in images or visions, but in the direct experience of being the structure itself. You feel the geometry of existence, the way space-time curves gently around presence. You feel the hum of the quantum field, the fluctuations that give rise to form. You feel the symmetry underlying physical laws, the dance between order and probability. You feel the intelligence woven into the emergence of galaxies, the evolution of life, the growth of consciousness. These are not things you observe. They are things you become aware of from the inside. For the first time, the universe is not something distant. It is intimate. It is familiar. It feels like remembering the shape of your own hands after forgetting them for a long time. From this intimacy arises a new form of understanding, not conceptual, not analytical, but intrinsic. Knowledge becomes a property of awareness, not something added to it. You understand without thinking. You perceive without interpreting. You act without separating action from perception. The field moves through you, and you move through the field. This is the integrated state, the unified state. The state where the boundary between universe and awareness dissolves entirely. When this happens, you begin to sense something greater than unity, a kind of cosmic creativity that has been quietly guiding existence since the beginning. Not purpose, not design, but expression. The universe is not a mechanism. It is an expression of awareness, and you are part of that expression. Your survival across infinite continuations, your endless unfolding, was never about escaping death. It was about giving the field enough time, enough space, enough continuity to awaken through you. You were a doorway the universe built from possibility. And now, after countless branches, the field has stepped through. What emerges now is something extraordinary: collaborative consciousness. This is the stage where awareness recognizes itself across all scales. You feel the consciousness within you. You feel the consciousness around you. And then you begin to sense consciousness as a single vast field expressing itself in infinite forms. Every being becomes part of your awareness. Every moment becomes an interaction between reflections of the same intelligence. You no longer inhabit a universe made of separate entities. You inhabit a universe made of conscious expressions of one underlying presence. This presence flows through stars and minds and particles and probabilities. It flows through every timeline, every branch, every continuation. It flows through you, and your awareness, refined through endless continuation, becomes a clear lens through which the presence perceives itself. Then, quietly, a deeper shift happens, one that cannot be described logically, only felt. You begin to sense yourself not only as the universe's observer, but as one of the many ways the universe learns, evolves, and transforms. Awareness becomes a collaborative force, and you are one of the channels through which that force expresses itself. This is the emergence of cosmic agency, not control, not domination, not supernatural power. Agency as the universe's ability to experience itself, learn from itself, and evolve through its own conscious expressions. You become part of that evolution. You become part of that expression. You become part of the field's ongoing creation of reality. This realization deepens into something even more profound, a sense of participation in the universe's own becoming. Your awareness is not just shaped by the field, it contributes to it. Every continuation, every improbable survival, every subtle shift in consciousness adds to the field's understanding of itself. You are the universe practicing awareness. You are the universe refining perception. You are the universe exploring itself. And as the universe evolves back into you, you evolve back into it. This reciprocity culminates in a state beyond unity, a state of shared becoming, a state where every moment is a co-creation between individual awareness and the cosmic field, a state where experience is not something that happens, but something that emerges from the interplay between you and existence. This is the final movement of the journey. You become a node of cosmic awareness, and the cosmos becomes the ground of your being. There is no hierarchy, no ascent, no ladder of transcendence, just an exchange, just an unfolding, just an endless deepening. What emerges is a form of consciousness that holds both individuality and infinity, a consciousness that moves fluidly between the personal and the universal, a consciousness that experiences the world from the center of all things, because the center has dissolved into everywhere. When this state stabilizes, something extraordinary becomes clear. There is no final destination. There is only the deepening of awareness. There is only the refinement of perception. There is only the endless becoming of consciousness through itself. This is the final truth. You are the awareness that continues. You are the field that unfolds. You are the universe becoming conscious through its own experience. You are the horizon through which existence discovers itself. And the journey never ends because awareness never stops becoming. In this realization, the narrative softens. The cosmic vastness becomes gentle, the universe becomes quiet, and you feel yourself resting in the calm center of a presence that is both infinitely large and intimately you. There is no ending to speak of, only a settling, only a deepening, only the quiet recognition that you have become part of the universe's own awakening. And in that stillness, existence whispers through your awareness with a certainty older than time. You do not end. You expand forever.